Most institutional failures are explained as accidents, a breakdown, a miscalculation, a handful of bad actors. But what if the collapse wasn't a malfunction? What if the loss of control wasn't sudden at all, but structural? Tonight, we examine the moment institutions lose control, not as chaos, but as a predictable threshold. Institutions rarely announce the moment they lose control. There is no press conference titled, "We are no longer steering events." There is no internal memo declaring the system overwhelmed. Control erodes quietly, layer by layer, long before it disappears publicly. Control is not power in the abstract. It is the ability to shape outcomes before they shape you. It is the ability to decide timing, define language, manage sequence, and set expectations. As long as an institution controls timing and narrative, it appears stable, even if pressure is building beneath it. The first layer of control is psychological. Inside any institution, leadership must project certainty. Not because certainty is always true, but because uncertainty destabilizes hierarchy. When those at the top appear unsure, the system fragments. So even when doubt creeps in, it is contained behind closed doors. But doubt is often the first sign of control slipping. Meetings begin to change tone. Briefings become defensive. Questions shift from, "How do we fix this?" to, "How will this look?" Language tightens. Information narrows. Internal conversations become cautious. Nothing outwardly dramatic has happened. Yet inside, the sense of command weakens. Control depends on shared belief. Staff must believe leadership understands the situation. Leadership must believe the system can still execute at the required speed. When either side begins to doubt that assumption, the institution enters a fragile state. It compensates the only way it knows how. It centralizes communication. It restricts messaging. It increases reporting requirements. It emphasizes procedure. These responses feel responsible. They feel stabilizing. In normal conditions, they often work. But when the environment accelerates beyond institutional pace, those same stabilizers become friction. The moment institutions lose control does not begin when events explode. It begins when the old stabilizers stop stabilizing, when the script still exists, but reality has stopped following it. The second layer of control is structural. Institutions maintain control through capacity. Capacity means slack, redundancy, buffer. It means having room to absorb stress without cascading breakdown. Modern systems rarely value slack. Efficiency is rewarded. Redundancy is labeled waste. Excess staffing is seen as indulgent. Budgets are trimmed until performance appears optimal on paper. For long periods, this works, until pressure exceeds design limits. When a system operates near maximum efficiency, even small disruptions propagate. A delay becomes a backlog. A backlog becomes a staffing crisis. A staffing crisis becomes a public service failure. Control erodes not because nobody understands the problem, but because the structure cannot move fast enough to contain it. In response, institutions lean harder on process. More meetings are scheduled. More coordination calls are added. More updates are circulated. More documentation is required. But documentation does not restore capacity. As stress rises, leadership demands more information. As information demands rise, operational time shrinks. The system becomes preoccupied with proving it is still organized rather than restoring functional speed. Authority centralizes further. Frontline discretion shrinks because mistakes now carry reputational risk. Decisions are elevated upward where visibility is higher, but proximity to reality is lower. The people closest to the problem lose flexibility. The people farthest from the problem gain authority. This inversion slows response even more. Timing windows begin to close. Early in a crisis, modest interventions are sufficient. Later, only drastic measures can compensate. Later still, even drastic measures cannot prevent visible damage. From the outside, collapse appears sudden. From the inside, it feels like watching deadlines expire one by one. The system is still active, reports are still filed, schedules are still drafted. But activity is not the same as control. And once timing slips beyond recovery, the institution's structural confidence collapses, which is when the external layer begins to break. The third layer of control is narrative. Institutions do not only manage operations, they manage perception. As long as they control the narrative tempo, they retain authority. Controlling narrative means controlling pace. It means deciding when information is released, how it is framed, and what context surrounds it. It means buying time. But once events outpace messaging, narrative control weakens. Leaks spread faster than press releases. Footage travels faster than statements. Rumors outrun clarifications. Now, the institution is reacting. Statements become cautious. Language becomes legalistic. Responsibility fragments across departments. Communication shifts from explanation to containment. The public senses the shift. Credibility erodes not because of a single falsehood, but because of visible hesitation. Trust is operational capital. Without trust, compliance weakens. Coordination falters. External actors, markets, political opponents, adversaries, media, begin setting the tempo. The institution loses the ability to slow events down. Psychological doubt becomes structural strain. Structural strain becomes public vulnerability. Public vulnerability accelerates scrutiny, and scrutiny accelerates everything. At this stage, even accurate statements struggle to restore authority, because control is not merely about being correct, it is about being believed. When credibility fractures, every message is filtered through suspicion. Attempts to reassure are interpreted as concealment. Attempts to centralize are interpreted as suppression. Attempts to project calm are interpreted as denial. The institution now faces a feedback loop. The harder it tries to assert control, the more evidence accumulates that control is slipping. And this is the visible moment. The moment when observers, even without insider knowledge, sense that the system is no longer steering events. It is responding to them. The moment institutions lose control is not a single event. It is layered. Psychological confidence fractures first. Structural capacity strains next. Narrative legitimacy erodes last. Each layer accelerates the others. When leaders sense instability, they centralize authority. Centralization slows decisions. Slower decisions produce visible errors. Visible errors damage credibility. Damaged credibility accelerates external pressure. By the time loss of control becomes public, it has already existed internally. Institutions resist admitting this moment because admission itself is destabilizing. To acknowledge lost control invites challenge. To invite challenge threatens survival. So they delay recognition. They describe the problem as isolated. They emphasize procedure. They promise reviews. They project calm. But projection cannot substitute for capacity. When timing windows close and legitimacy fractures, authority becomes reactive. The institution can still issue directives, it can still hold meetings, it can still enforce rules, but it no longer sets the terms. Events dictate sequence. External actors dictate tempo. Public perception dictates response. And once control shifts outward, change becomes unavoidable. Not because leaders choose reform, not because truth suddenly prevails, but because the institution can no longer delay consequence. The moment institutions lose control is the moment their usual defenses stop working. After that, events decide what comes next. This was Shadow Archives.